So hello, everyone. We have Anna Babinets today, who's Ukrainian and is an editor of Slidstvo.info, which is one of the leading Ukrainian investigative outlets. She also works for OCCIP. If you heard about them, this is a wonderful organization based in Eastern Europe, and they specialize in financial investigations, corruption, and things like this. And we would have loved to have Anna in person, but Ukrainians need visas to come to the UK, and not just as refugees, but generally. So unfortunately, she couldn't get visa in time. So unfortunately, she is online, but we're delighted to have her. And she will tell you about the situation in investigative journalism in Ukraine. After she's spoken, I'm going to take questions. I'm going to feed back to her so she knows what you're asking, and then she will answer live on screen. So here you go. Over to you, Anna.
Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't be there with you, but this is possibility for me to talk about Ukraine, about journalism in this hard time, and I'm happy to talk about, of course, not very good things, but it's what's really going on. And I would like to share our experience of my investigative center, experience of Ukrainian journalists who never had possibility and never had experience to be war journalists. But now one day everything changed, and now all of us are journalists in the war, in the wartime. So first of all, I'll tell about Slidstvo.info. Slidstvo.info, it's an investigative agency. We established it 10 years ago when Viktor Yanukovych was president in Ukraine. It was pro-Russian president, and I think you know the history. You know that after Revolution of Dignity, Yanukovych ran away to Russia, and a lot of really important things and reforming and independent journalists became growing and became really important part of modern Ukraine. So we started 10 years ago, and it looked like a little bit crazy to be investigative journalists because almost all medias were owned by oligarchs and were controlled by government. It was censorship, not like in Russia, but very close. But we believed that we can deliver really high quality journalism, because we were communicating, we were working with our international colleagues from different countries, and we saw that investigative journalism can bring impact, can work. Even in hard countries, we have colleagues from Russia, from Azerbaijan, from Kazakhstan, and these journalists just try to change something. That was the idea, try to change something, when we established Slidstvo.info. And for our main focus is anti-corruption investigations and big crimes. It was 5 months ago. We were building like classic investigative center. Now Slidstvo.info, it's about 12, 13 people who work every day, and some people who work sometimes for us. For last 8 years, after Ukraine became like more democratic country, the main challenge for us as for journalists and for citizens was corruption. So for last years, we were working on corrupted top politicians. We know how to discover and show high-level corruption and how to make stories about top politicians. We produced 2 big stories. One of offshores. One of them is about offshores of Petro Poroshenko, previous president. Was his offshore company. It was part of Pandora. It was part of Panama Papers. And about offshores of President Zelensky, it was part of Pandora Papers. So one of our main direction was to work on secret offshore companies of top politicians. In Ukraine, it was, and it's still very popular for politicians because they connect to business and very popular, try to avoid taxes, and so they had and have, I think, many offshore companies for avoiding taxes. And every time when we were part as List24, as OCCRP journalists, when we were part of big project like Panama Papers, Pandora Papers, Paradise Papers, I had hopes that I will not find current president in this databases, but unfortunately I found them. But journalists from my agency, all the Ukrainian journalists, we were working hard for all these years. I had this dream, I had this hope that one day I will not find the Ukrainian president in offshore leaks, because every time it happened, and I hope that our work, scandals around top politicians who have offshores, who are corrupted, it's very big risk for reputation for politicians in Ukraine. And now it's really big damage when stories like this publishing. And I just hope that maybe after that president, maybe next president, maybe in 10 years, in the end, we will not find big Ukrainian politicians in all this offshore leaks. That was the big dream, and the biggest dream. And for me, it would mean that we changed the situation with corruption in Ukraine as journalists because of publishing stories. So all my team, all journalists from my team were working on it. They knew all names of family members of top politicians, their cars, their properties, where they live, where their relatives live, and even some numbers of license plates of the car, because we were following and we were checking, we were covering corrupted officials. It was one of our main way. And there are journalists who work with me, they work for many years, but in one day, all our knowledge, all our tools became just trash, became just nothing, because when war started on February 24th, all things we worked for years, all experience we got, or awards we got, all stuff we know, names of members, names of family members, license plates of top politicians, names of offshore companies, it doesn't matter anymore. So all our work, all we built for years, just in one day looked like nothing, like it was not useful anymore. Now, all our knowledge couldn't save our country from Russia, from Russian militaries, from Putin. So, of course, our agency, journalists, me, we felt very disappointed and very frustrated, because we were working in one direction for a long time. We had reputation, everyone knew what we were producing. Of course, we had a lot of scandals with officials, all the things. And in one day, all stuff we were preparing, we were working on, just it became not matter for what we found ourselves in the morning on February 24th. So yes, we realized that our skills, investigative corruption and bad governance, not useful anymore. And we, of course, thought, what should we do? Unfortunately, for 1 month before war, we started preparing to the war. We have very good international colleagues from OCCRP, from other centers around the world, and they helped us. Bellingcat, they give like two or three trainings for us, how to work with OSCE and how to identify people on social networks. And we had like some trainings about tactical medicine. It looked funny a little bit when we did it on January, because it's very hard to imagine that in one day everything might be destroyed. But we were prepared. So we bought vests, we bought all equipment for surviving in war times, for working in war times, and every editorial meeting during January, February, we were talking every week about plans of every journalist, of every member of our center, private plan and working plan. If war will start tomorrow, what you will do. So what we were talking on our meetings about that. So we had like a little bit psychological, we were a little bit psychological prepared for the war. And I think that maybe we were the most prepared media in Kyiv to the war, because we are small, we had planned what we will do in case, of course, we wanted to continue our investigative work. But in one day, we just became like new media. We are not, I can say that we're classic investigative media, because we're doing war reporting, we're focusing on war crimes, covering and discovering war crimes. Of course, we're using some of our tools, but all previous things we made, all previous experience we had, it's not useful anymore. We have office in Kyiv, and in first days of the war, about 5 persons stayed to live in office. They bring their cats. It was yesterday we were talking with my colleagues about first day of the war. 5 persons stayed there, 4 cats, 1 mouse, 1 rat, like home rat, and 2 snails. So people just bring their animals with them, and they lived in the office, because office in downtown, and it looked like it's more comfortable to be there for all these people. They stayed there for 1.5 months. It was hard times for Kyiv region, when Kyiv region was partly occupied by Russian militaries. And we just did everyday reporting. People just wore, say, vests, helmets, and went to the grounds in Kyiv. And it was almost every day rockets attacked Kyiv in March. And if they had possibilities, they were traveling around Kyiv region, and we published war reporting, and we never did that. And some people from our agency were even not journalists, administrative people who start to do reporting, because it was only one way to figure out what's going on and to help organization to be strong organization in hard times. People who were in Kyiv, they were doing reporting, they talked to people, we published video stories, we published stories on our website, we talked to victims of bombing, and all they told us, we published, of course, and we hope that it will help for at least part of that work. And other people who were moving around Ukraine with their families, or with to villages, mostly to the west of Ukraine, that people start, they were doing research and working with OSINT. We used a lot of knowledge which Bellingcat shared with us. So they obtained lists of Russians who came to Ukraine, and they analyzed them. They trying to found proofs that they're really in Ukraine, looking at their social networks. We called them, we called their relatives to figure out that they're really there in Ukraine and what exactly they do, in what regions they are. So we were working on, we were doing this mostly analytical work at the people who were not in Kyiv. They were doing that work, and from first days and by now, and still one of our main direction of our work is identifying Russian militaries who come to Ukraine. Of course, we are interested in top militaries, like officers, like commanders. Of course, we're working on them, but we try to show everyone. We can find proofs that they are here, what exactly they do, because we believe that things we publish, things we find, will be used in international cards. They're already using in Ukrainian cards. And I hope it will help to find everyone, every criminal who made crimes in Ukraine with Russian flag, and everyone will be punished according to stuff they did. So what we're doing, we're collecting proofs of crimes of Russian militaries. As I mentioned, mostly people, we're doing video, like our main focus is video. We have website and we have video. And people who were sitting in villages and they're looking for information, usually we have in our office, like I can say it's studio, but we have conditions to record video if the person like blogs or reporting, and people can do it. But when people were in villages around Ukraine, we just decided to buy like a small sets of, we call this blogger set. This is like small stuff you can do. You can record yourself. So we're doing like our director just explains them how to do that. So all videos we published first months were doing mostly at home by people who previously worked with professional cameras, and now because we wanted to bring information, we wanted to keep working, and we just tried to do everyone who was recording that videos from their homes, and we published that videos. I was coordinating all this. I was in different country because I have 7 years old daughter, and I decided to leave country when it looked really, really hard, and we left country. We left Ukraine with her. Fortunately, we're at home now. We're in Kiev. But for 3 months, we stayed in different country, and I was coordinating all this process. Like now, for me now, when I'm thinking about that, it's like establishing absolutely new media with the same people. We, of course, we used and we're using some of our tools, but it was new media. It's not investigative, classic investigative center. So I felt like I became to work as in new media with the same name, with the same people, but with absolutely different goals, with absolutely different methods of work. And we first 2 months we had editorial call, editorial meeting every day without weekends. Then after 2 months we start to have weekends sometimes. So and we published like a few stories per day, 7-10 stories per week. It's not what we did before. Before, as investigative agency, we published like 3 stories per month, maybe 5 stories per month, not more. But now we still publish 5-6 stories per week. In the beginning, we published like, and I'm editor-in-chief, so I was editing like 24/7. I almost didn't sleep. It was new for us, for all our journalists, and but we just were looking. We were looking what we can do as investigative journalists who were always against the authority, who were always criticize authority and officials, and it was hard for us. I can say hard, but it was not easy for us to find our own way and our place in the new world. We found ourselves on February 24th. But our hard work and like new media, we changed a lot. We obtained new audience, our visitors to our websites and YouTube channel. It's grown like many times. Like I will not mention a lot of numbers, but I would say that for 4 years of our YouTube channel, we have 26 millions of views for 4 years, and 20 millions from this 26 millions. This is for last 4 months from the beginning of the war. So it's like we found that people really want to know. It was new for us too. We didn't know what people want. People just wanted the war stops, the war ends, but we couldn't do that. We are journalists, and we found that people really want to know names, faces, relatives, everyone who might do crimes in Ukraine. And we found that it's very interesting for people, that it's very interesting for audience. And then we, especially after Kyiv region, after Russian soldiers left Kyiv region, and we started like real reporting on grounds, and few groups of journalists were going and still traveling around Kyiv region, and we collecting proofs, evidences of crimes of Russian militaries. And we talked to people, and we for last months we published stories, and we come to people, and we, for example, we know in what villages what militaries were staying. We talk to people what they did, and we show them pictures. We print out pictures of people we can identify from that military unit, and they recognize them. Like a couple of weeks ago, we published a story when the dad whose daughter was killed in front of him. We knew this story, and we showed him like many pictures of people who might be there, and he recognized the person who killed his daughter. And we published this story. And we published all this our findings, all our stories. And in one moment, I think in April, officials began to request us to help them with official investigation, to share information we obtain, to share information we publish. It was a big discussion for us because our work, we're independent journalists, and we can't cooperate with officials. Usually we work like in different sites. Then prosecutors asked our journalists to train them how we identify people, and we decided that we can do it. We can share with them our knowledge and how we do it. And our journalist, he made like 2 or 3 trainings for different officials who officially investigate Russians in Ukraine, crimes of Russian militaries in Ukraine. We shared our knowledge, we shared how exactly we work with that. I hope it helped. And also now we train journalists from region how to identify Russian militaries, and we have like a lot of stories, and some people from the regions want to communicate with us, want to cooperate with us. So it looks like we had nothing in the beginning of the war, but then because we were interested who are the criminals who did so crazy, so wild things in Ukraine, and we found big audience, and we found prosecutors, other officials who asked us to help, and other journalists from different regions asked us to train them how we're doing it. We just so now we have like our main direction. What we're doing, and also we're going around Ukraine, mostly Kyiv region, but sometimes we're going to closer to the front, to the hard front line, and doing reporting, talking to people. Another our direction, we working on deported deported Ukrainians to Russia. As you maybe know, that more than 1 million Ukrainians were violently deported mostly from Mariupol, from the east of Ukraine to Russia. And now their relatives can't find them. It's hard to figure out what's going on with there. And we published a few stories. One of story was like close to investigation, to classical investigation. We found the role of Russian church on this process. Russian church looked like part of government, because they are doing their own role in the process of deporting Ukrainians to Russia. And we also published stories of people who were lucky and then they ran away from Russia after they were deported from the east of Ukraine. And now they are in European Union, and we're working on stories like this, on kidnapped people, captured people. We work on stories like this. Yeah, so it's nothing. Absolutely different work, absolutely different journalism we did before the war, but we see very big impact. And when we publish stories, especially about victims, about killed people, murdered people, people who were tortured, we have very big reflection. We have a lot of people who call us, who text us and want to tell their stories. They inform us. I can recognize that people I know who were there. They sent us documents they found on their villages, and we can compare, and we can see the list of soldiers, we can see the list of militaries, and we can figure out a lot of people, especially from Kyiv region, ask us to help to figure out, to find Russians who made crimes here in Ukraine. And looks like our audience, we obtained new audience, and they understand what we do, and they want to share their stories with us, which is a big impact and big success for us, because what we're doing, it can make impact in real world, and it's always important for all journalists. So for this, more than 4 months, so we absolutely changed from investigative center to we focusing on covering war crimes in different understanding as journalists. And of course, we always think we miss times before war, not only as humans, of course, we want the war ends, but we miss times when we were working on stories about top politicians, when we were looking for their properties, for when we are working on corruption, when we were figuring out all the things. And of course, I hope one day we will come back, but it doesn't mean that corruption disappeared. Now it's very hard to prove corruption. We think, and sometimes we publish stories, if we see stories about Ukrainian officials, of course we talk about every story which can make some damage for the country in so hard time. But if we have proofs about corrupted officials, of course we publish it, we're working on it. But now we have much less tools to work on it. Almost all open information already not open. Company registers closed. Card register just opened like a few days ago. We can't see many services we worked with before the war, like for spending of budget money. So we have like much less tools to work as classic investigative journalists. And I don't know when it will end. I am not sure that it will finish with when war will end. I'm not sure that it will finish, because now our authority is doing really good work. I agree, they're doing the best they can do in that situation. But I suspect that it will be hard for everyone to come back to normal life. and to understand for top politicians, for officials, that they work for us, they work for people. And we spent many years with scandals, with this offshore stories, for giving this understanding for politicians, for authorities, that they work for people and journalists just control them. Now journalists for officials look like people who just disturb them, who just bother them, and who just can bring some secret bad things. And mostly Ukrainian journalists don't do this, because now we are fighting for our country. We don't do stuff against our country. But I still have a lot of doubts and a lot of concern when everything we were building for years, I mean, building democracy, building right, good communication between journalists and authority. It was not perfect, but it became better and better. But now, looks like a lot of this stuff destroyed, and we will need another 5, 10, I don't know, more years to build things we already built before the war. I'm talking not only about physical material stuff, like buildings. Yeah, it will be hard, but I mean that kind of understanding in social, in Ukrainian social and in civil society, all the things. Now all the stuff becoming harder, and it's becoming harder for us to come back to high quality investigative journalism. But of course, we hope one day it will happen. And also talking about media market in Ukraine, now it's actually in these circumstances, it's good time for independent journalism to grow up, because people want to get information from independent medias. And also we still have big medias, especially TV channels, are owned by oligarchs in Ukraine, as you know. This year, before the war, it's supposed to be the year of fighting with Ukrainian oligarchs. It was the law. President Zelensky started this fighting. We as journalists, we had a lot of plans to publish stories about oligarchs, about their ways, about how they became so rich, mostly stories from 19th. But now we see that it's not what we can work on, and many Ukrainian oligarchs and rich people who are owners of media, they are not as rich as they were before the war. A businessman, Renat Akhmetov, I think you know him. A lot of his business, a big part of his business, were located in the east of Ukraine, and now it's destroyed. And I think that from the autumn, maybe from next year, it will be very, very big change in media market, because many of these channels owned by oligarchs, which are not commercial, they will maybe they will stop working, maybe they will work like much smaller channels, because it's big money, and now that oligarchs and businessmen don't have this money. Commercial media in hard circumstances too, because no advertisement, no commercial, and they will have to fire people. And I think that we will have some crisis in the market. I think from the autumn we will have a lot of journalists who will lose their job, and I don't know what will happen, because it's first time for us, for our country too. But on other hand, it's a good time for independent journalism, because our agency, like many other small independent centers, are funding by international foundations, by government on other countries. So it's on other hand, it's good chance for us, good challenge to becoming bigger and get more influence on people. And now we see that we changed for one day, from one type of media to another type of media, and we can grow, we can become bigger, like classical media, classical I don't know, like daily media or something. But then when I talk to my journalists, when we talk to them, I understand that we just want to be investigative journalists. We just want to investigate corruption. We just want to investigate officials, to find offshores of the stuff. I hope we will not find offshores of Ukrainian politicians one day, as I already mentioned, but we want to come back to our work, despite big chances for us to become like bigger media with bigger influence. We just want to be investigators. Of course, we will investigate crimes of Russian militaries as long as it's necessary. Like months ago, we released a big database that calls Russian war criminals, and we put like thousands of Russian soldiers, of Russian militaries who are in Ukraine, with dossiers, with portraits of them. We published on our stories, so we just compare lists we obtained from officials and from our sources, with published by our agency or by other journalists, with published stories about them. So we try to, with our idea to obtain, to get in the end like profile of every Russian military who made crimes in Ukraine, and have this database we already published, and we are in the process of we still update it. So we will work as war reporters as long as it's necessary. We will not stop. We understand that this for a long time, but of course our main goal, and we want to be just investigative reporter, just working on stories for months and doing like big stories, have possibility to attend conferences, because it's very important for journalists to be with people like they are from different countries. Now I'm not physically in the United Kingdom because of visa things, of course, but it's also very hard to travel from Ukraine. They need to spend 2-3 days for coming to any country because it's not flying here, and men can't travel. Many of my journalists who would share their experience, they are men, and would be great if they travel. We just want to live normal journalist life, and we don't have possibility to do it, but of course we will work as long as it's possible, and I hope one day we will become just regular investigative center who criticize authority, and who try to make our authority better and to work for people. So that's only our dream, to come back to the times. So thank you. If you have questions, I will be happy to answer. So we are doing journalism stuff. So we are doing our stories, and we are looking for proofs that people were in Ukraine, what exactly they did, if we can find pictures, their comments, or some things they wrote on their social networks. So we verify this information that people were in Ukraine, and our partners from it's anti-corruption, it calls anti-corruption shtab, anti-corruption headquarter. It's a civil society organizations. They doing all technical stuff. They put all these people there, and we compare with the stories. So we, in the beginning, we decided we will not publish stuff like from Telegram or from like some rumors. we will publish only, so if you open this surname, it's actually in English, it calls Russian war criminals. You can look at it. And if you see the profile of the person, you can see links which proves that that person was in Ukraine or still in Ukraine. Maybe some, we use our stories, where we proved that people were in Ukraine, other journalists, other Ukrainian journalists, international journalists story, I mean, with reputation, like with good reputation. Also, we use official information, because sometimes Ukrainian military intelligence publish lists of that people, and we link that list because it's official information, and we publish that. Or security service sometimes publish video or audio of Russian soldiers, they talk to each other, so we link to official information from official bodies. So we use journalism work and official announcement, official information about that people, and we understand that there are a lot of information in social networks. We don't use it, so we have like some level of verification we can accept for publishing on our database. Yes. Actually, it was my story about offshores of Petro Poroshenko. As you know, he is confectionery businessman. He has very big confectionery like holding. And before he became president, of Ukraine, he promised during the running for the position, he promised that he will sell this big business because it might be conflict of interest for him, and he promised that I will sell Roshan. And in the end, when I was working on Panama Papers, we found that instead of selling Roshan, he just created offshore company behind him. He was in front of this company himself, Petro Poroshenko, when he was already president, just to move all construction of Ukrainian business to offshores. So it looked like he didn't want to sell it. He just wanted to hide or doing some tricky stuff. So I was after this story. It was 2016. He was president. It was like three months of hard attacks from Poroshenko people to me, to our agencies, to journalists, and it was a lot of advice to stop working on the stories. It was like really hard times when you publish something. It was war in Ukraine. I mean, war in east part of Ukraine, hard times of the war, and all people who criticize us and me, and they say that you're working for Kremlin, you're working for Russia because you publish stories about our president of country in the war. And yeah, it was hard times. It was one of, sorry, actually we made a lot of stories. It's like Ukrainian investigators, it's not only our center, it's many great centers who work as like classic investigators. It's very popular to do stories about presidents, of course. We made a lot of stories about a smaller story, it was big. About your questions, what people now think about Petro Poroshenko, you know, now the main hero is Volodymyr Zelensky. So all people who even hate him, who didn't like him for last months, they feel like, and they really respect him in Ukraine, and all other politicians now out of, agenda. I mean, I think that some people, of course, still like him, but we can't compare Poroshenko and Zelensky now. So he is not powerful now. He's a politician, but the main powerful politicians now, it's like Zelensky and his team, people who are around him. It's good, but anyway, I mean, what I mentioned, as journalists, as investigators, we should come back to control them as journalists. We and our journalists, the reporters, they try to talk to the people. They're looking for social networks, for groups, because previously we had a lot of partners around Ukraine, like civil society, people from civil organization, from different, because for last 8 years in every city, especially Mariupol, it was really great city. It was a few times, maybe a couple of times, it was festival of investigative documentaries, investigative stories in Mariupol, and we were there, and our colleagues were there and introduced it. So almost in every city and small cities, there are active people, they're activists. It's very easy to find them on Facebook. And then we asked about cases, and we just, because they know us as media with good reputation, and they usually help us. Talking about deported people, Ukrainians deported, we have partners in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This is one of the way of Ukrainians who run away from Russia. They're going to St. Petersburg and going to that direction. And there are some shelters, some places for Ukrainians, and volunteers help that. And we have partners and our colleagues in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and we asked them to come there to talk to people, and we're doing this work together. They found people and asked them about contacts. Then we explain them that we are from Ukraine, we are Slistva, and they share with us their experience. So yeah, that what we do is just reporting work. And also, I forgot to mention in the beginning of the June, Russian government banned our website in Russia because they have this Roskomnadzor. This is like censorship body in Russian government, and they decided that our website, Slitsko.info website, is dangerous for Russia, and they blocked it, they banned it. And then we checked that 23% of traffic of our website we really had from Russia. So people from Russia read the stories. For them, it was maybe one possibility to find what happened with their relatives, with people, because we mentioned names, pictures, all the stuff. So, but Russia decided that it's dangerous for them because we're not doing analytics, we're not doing stuff like Russia is our enemy, all the stuff. We're doing like mostly work with investigation. So it's dangerous for Russians to have information about their military, their people, what they did in Ukraine and where they are. We actually, if we get this information, maybe we will try to work on it. It became easy for us to work when Russians run away, and we can work and talk to people, and we have access to the place. We didn't get any signals on these territories where we worked about crimes of Ukrainians. Maybe it's happening, it's going on, but maybe we will know more after more territories will be free and we can come to the fields and talk to people. By now, we talked to people, we didn't hear about that. Maybe something happened, people just don't want to talk about it. Maybe in this area we work, it not happens there because, you know, it's Kiev region, it was very quickly. Now, maybe something wrong going on, but I can't imagine that Ukrainian militaries can rape Ukrainians. I mean, in so huge stuff like it happened with Russians, and they can just because Ukrainian military is in Ukraine, and they should do according to Ukrainian law. If something will happen, they will go to prison. Russians just came there and disappeared, and it's like, we don't know if they will be punished after Ukrainian cards, after international cards. They feel like they will never be punished, so that's why they did so wild things. Ukrainians are in Ukrainian territory, and if something will happen, they will go to prison at least. So it's harder for them to do something. But by now, we didn't have like signals from people we talked to about that.
I think we ran out of time. I'm going to thank Anna for taking part, be it on Zoom. We would have been a lot nicer to have you in the room. Hope next time, in the better times, easier times, you'll come here. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm going to try to show you.
Thank you.